Hello, llama friends. Hi, I think my computer went crazy for a second. Hi, llamas. So we're talking all about animals this week, and Miss Megan posted a video on Monday talking about the different features and body parts that animals have, and the really cool things that they can do with some of their body parts, like their nose and their ears, and what else did we talk about? Their eyes and their feet do different cool things. So today we're going to talk about the animal homes. So our title of this story is Animal Homes, which talks about where different animals live. So I want you to think for a second, put your thinking cap on. Think about where you might see animals. Where do you think animals live? Miss Megan will write down some ideas as we're thinking, and then we'll read our story. So one place animals might live is your home. So if you have a pet cat or a dog, or if you have a fish or some other kind of pet, they might be living in your house or your home. Let's see, what else? Maybe they live on a farm. So what are some farm animals that you can think of? Who might live on a farm? Do whales live on a farm? No. Do giraffes live on a farm? No. We might see some cows and horses and roosters that live on farms. Those are some types of farm animals. Let's see, where else might they live? The ocean. So if we think of dolphins and fish, those animals live in the ocean. Those are animals or in the water that can swim. Let's think. What else? So another place Miss Megan thought of is the jungle. So this word says jungle. So if we think of monkeys or snakes, spiders live in the jungle, jaguars, those are all animals that live in the jungle. And then we have animals, oh man. Sorry, Miss Megan's A looks really silly, and my C. The Arctic is, and when I spelled that wrong too. Hold on, friends. Let me get my eraser. Miss Megan made an oops. Sometimes I write too fast and then I spell a word wrong. So some animals live in the Arctic. If we think about polar bears, penguins, those are animals that, and seals, those are animals that like to live in those really cold temperatures in the Arctic. We talked about that in the winter time. And then another place animals might live is the desert. So we might see some animals living in the desert. So those are, we might see snakes again live in the desert. Some, a bearded dragon lives in the desert, like Chan. His species lives in the desert. We might see some other lizards. Camels live in the desert. So those are some homes that animals can live in. Those are some habitats. Other places they might live in are like caves and trees and tunnels, and let's see, where else might they live? In the woods, in a nest. So we're going to kind of dive in and see all the places that animals can live in. So let's take a look at our first page. This page talks about holes and tunnels. So before we read, what kind of animals do you think live in holes and tunnels? Do you think a dog can live in a tunnel? Do you think a horse could fit in a tunnel? No. Let's see. Moles and rabbits are animals that can live in a tunnel. Badgers live in tunnels. So they dig and scoop in the ground. So they're digging and building a hole in the ground, and that's where they live. Moles are one of the animals that live in tunnels. So this is a picture of a mole. Right there, that's what a mole looks like. And moles live alone, and it's really, really dark in tunnels where they live. They like to eat worms that are in the ground, and they sleep, they make a chamber that looks like this that they sleep in. And rabbits live underground too, and then they hop out into the grass when it's clear. Another place that animals can live in are caves and dens. So what animal do you see here? A bear. So bears are an animal that can live in a cave. And that's where they sleep in the winter time when they're hibernating. So in the winter, they stay in the cave away from all that wind and snow because it keeps them warm. They have a thick fur coat. It keeps them warm in that cold weather time. So if you've ever gone to the Columbus Zoo, we might see bears in a cave. You can see them through the glass. They have a cave, and then they have water right outside their cave where they can swim and catch fish. They sleep in that cave in the winter time. And if you go in the winter, you might see them laying in the cave because it's warmer in there. So they lay like that. And then they have leaves sometimes to help make a soft bed. We might see some leaves. Who else? These are other animals that live in caves. And if you go to the Columbus Zoo, you'll see them in a cave too. These are bats. So bats sleep in a cave, and they sleep there all day long. Because remember, they're nocturnal, which means that they're up at nighttime. So during the day, we'll see them sleeping in their cave, and then at night, we'll see them flying around. And they sleep upside down. Can you see them sleeping upside down? Could you sleep upside down? Do you think that would hurt your head? Miss Megan couldn't sleep upside down. Another place that animals might live are in a tree. So the animals we see here that live in a tree are squirrels. Have you ever seen squirrels near your house or maybe near flying colors? The squirrels live in a tree, and they might make a nest like this. So they sleep in a tree because it's safe to be high up, away from all those hungry enemies that are looking for squirrels. So they build nests with trees, twigs, and grass. While the woodpecker drills a hole into the tree trunk. So their tail helps them balance on the tree, the squirrel's tail. And they have claws that helps them climb up the tree. So they have claws on their feet to help them climb. Another place that animals might live are on logs and leaves. So there's only a couple animals and then that live on logs and trees, and then the rest are bugs. So the two animals that live on logs and trees that are in this story are spiders. Remember we talked about spiders last week, and frogs or toads. Those are animals that live in logs and trees, and then the rest of the living creatures we see here are bugs. So we see a worm and a beetle. There's another beetle over here. So all kinds of tiny creatures make their home on a mossy log. So this is moss right here, this green part. That is called moss. So here they can sleep, eat, and lay their eggs. And when it becomes too crowded, so when there's too many bugs or animals there, they can move next door on a pile of leaves. So the first bug we see here is a beetle. So we see a beetle right here, and they crawl over the log looking where it can safely lay eggs. So when they lay eggs, they might lay them in a way that looks like this. And then other bugs that might live in leaves and logs are millipedes. And they curl up like this, and they look like a spiral almost when they're curled up. And then, of course, we see the spiders that make their webs on trees. We might see a centipede. Let's see what else. And then ants. Remember, ants live in the ground and they can make tunnels. And this is what it might look like for ants living on leaves. Looks like they're carrying food. And then the toads or frogs, they live in a pile of leaves like this. The next place that animals live are the woods. What kind of animals do you think you would see in the woods? We might see a fox, right? A fox. You might see deer in the woods. Has anybody ever seen a deer? Miss Megan's family lives in Licking Valley, and there's a lot of deer over there in Licking Valley because there's a lot of country area over there. We might see some squirrels. So the woods are all full of animal homes, and there's a lot of animals that live in the woods. We might see those spiders and the bugs and the squirrels and birds, all kinds of animals. Another place that animals live are birds' nests. Have you ever seen a bird's nest? It might look like this, right? This is a nest for ducks. So in the spring, many birds make their nests where they can lay eggs and where the baby birds can hatch and the mom can bring them food. So that's when we hear those noisy birds chirping for their mom to bring them back food. So the picture that is in this book is a duck, and it looks like she's laying on top of her eggs. And we see one hatching here. Do you see it, a baby chick hatching? When a duck hatches, it's called a duckling. And when birds hatch, they're called a baby chick. And then last week, we talked about bees and wasps and hornets. And they build hives. That's what they live in. They live in hives. And a hive might look like this. So each egg has its own special room called a cell. So all of these are cells. Can you see them? So that's where the baby eggs might live. And then we have a queen bee. Remember, the queen is the biggest bee. So the queen bee sits in inside, right there. And then she lays lots of tiny eggs inside the cells. And then we have those worker bees that are going out and bringing food back in for the bees. And then every week a beekeeper will come and check on the hive. So they wear a protective mask, and they might wear gloves and a suit to protect themselves from any bee stings. And so when they check on the bees, it might look like this. Another place that animals might live are in sticks and mud. So beavers are one of those animals that live in the sticks and mud. They collect branches and sticks and thick brown mud to build a home. So the picture that I'm going to show you is of a lodge. That's what they call the beaver home. So they built a lodge, and it can be above water or it can be below water, and it looks like this. We see the beavers there sitting on top. You see the sticks right here, and then the brown mud that's underneath. After they stay dry and warm above the water. And then when they want to leave the lodge, they can swim in the water here. Another place that animals live, which Mrs. Megan didn't think of earlier when we were making our list, is shells. So there are some animals that live in shells. So they carry their home with them wherever they go. So a snail is one of those animals that has a shell on its back. So in the dry weather, a snail will hide inside its shell, but when it's wet, it'll poke its head out and search for food. So this is what a snail looks like. And this is its shell, and see how it's poking its head out for food? Another animal that has a shell is a turtle. A turtle lives inside its shell, and when it goes to sleep, it tucks itself in underneath the shell. And then another animal is a hermit crab. A hermit crab doesn't have its own shell, so it borrows one. So when it gets bigger, it gets a new shell. And a hermit crab looks like this. So when Miss Megan was a little girl, I used to live on the beach. And I used to have a lot of hermit crabs as pets. So when my hermit crabs would get bigger, Miss Megan would have to buy a shell that was a bigger size. So when the hermit crab grew, it could go into the bigger shell, and then it would shed the little shell off, and I could toss the little shell away. So every time my hermit crab got bigger, Miss Megan had to buy a new shell so that it could grow into it. Because they need to fit inside their shell so that when they tuck in, they have enough room. And then, of course, pet animals might live in your house. So if you have a pet, remember we talked about pet fish, if you have a pet bird, if you have a hamster, guinea pig, a dog, or a cat, those are all pets, and they might live in your house. So when you're looking after a pet, there's all different kinds of homes that you might have to give them. So for example, if you have a fish, can your fish sleep on your bed? No, so we need to make sure your fish has a home. So a pet home for a fish might be a tank. It might look like this. And then if you have a dog, you might give them a dog bed, or maybe if they're a small dog, you give them a basket with a blanket to sleep in. It may look like this. And if you have a guinea pig or a hamster or gerbil, they need a place to run, or they might need a wheel, so they might have these, right? And if you have a pet bird, your bird might need to stay in a cage, and then take it out to get some exercise. So this is what a bird cage looks like. And then many animals live by the river, in trees and banks. And that is all in my story. So Miss Megan is going to play an activity with you now, where we are going to sort animals into their animal home. So I'm going to share the screen with you so that you can see the activity. Okay, hopefully you can see it. So we are going to play animal habitat games. And a habitat is a place where an animal lives and grows. So this is the animal's home. So we just read a whole book about animal homes. So it might be by the river, it might be on trees and leaves, it might be in a pet home, it might be in the woods. There's all kinds of habitats. And we're going to take a look at some of them on these slides. So the first one we're going to look at, I can get to it, is a pond. So we're gonna think, we're gonna play a game and see which animals live in the pond. So we're gonna click on the purple one first. So the first animal has webbed feet and it quacks. What animal quacks? A duck. Let's see if it's a duck. It is. So a duck is one animal that lives in a pond. Next, we're going to look at blue. So this animal has fins. What animal has fins? What do you think? Let's look and find out. A fish. So a fish is another animal that lives in a pond. This next animal lives in a lodge made of sticks. Do you remember what animal lives in a lodge made of sticks? Maybe it's a beaver? Let's look. It is a beaver. A beaver lives in a lodge made of sticks. Remember, they're made of sticks and thick mud. So this one has a shell on its back and it lives in the water. So maybe it's a turtle or a snail. Let's see. Oh, we were wrong. It's a frog. But it said it had a shell and it, oh, maybe, hold on. Miss Megan picked the wrong one. Whoops. Let's hit the green one. We were right. It's a turtle. A turtle has a shell. And then the last one, which was the frog, hops and croaks. So another animal home or habitat is a farm. And that's one of the ones that we listed before our story. So we're going to look at some of the animals that might live on a farm. So this animal is, what do you think this animal is? A sheep, a baby sheep. This next animal makes this sound. What do you think that is? A duck. A duck quacks and makes the quacking sound. This next animal makes this sound. What animal makes this sound? A rooster. A rooster is another animal that lives on a farm. What is this animal right here? A horse. What sound do you think a horse makes? Neigh. Can you make a horse sound? This next animal makes a meow sound. What animal says meow? A cat. So we might see a cat on a farm. This last animal says moo. Let's listen to it. Wait, hold on. Did you hear it? Moo. What animal is this? A cow. So a cow says moo. Those are all animals that live on a farm. Next, we're going to look at our little octopus. So we are going to figure out where he lives. Where do you think an octopus lives? Do you think he lives in a tree? Can you have an octopus as a pet? No. Let's see where he lives. It looks blue. I see a fish. Where do you think the octopus lives? In the ocean. That's right. So an octopus is an animal that lives in the ocean. The ocean is their habitat. So other animals that the octopus might live with in the ocean are turtles or dolphins, sharks or manatees. They might live with manatees because they're an ocean animal. And jellyfish also live in the ocean. So these are some animals that live in the jungle. Let's look at what animals live in the jungle. We have a monkey. A cheetah lives in the jungle. A snake might live in the jungle. A gorilla lives in the jungle. What's this animal? A hippo. A hippo lives in the jungle. And then we have a lion. So we see lions in the jungle too. We talked about the desert. So the desert is a really dry place. And remember we talked about where we might see some camels or snakes or lizards that live in the jungle or in the desert. We have other animals that live in the desert too. So we might see a kangaroo living in the desert, or an armadillo, or we see snakes or scorpions. We might see a coyote or fox living in the desert. And then the grasslands are another habitat for animals. So this is where we might see our lions and our giraffes and rhinos, the ostrich or zebra or elephant. Those are some animals that we saw yesterday when we did our zoo field trip. So those are grassland animals. So they like to live in the grasslands, and they're primarily in Africa. So those are all the habitats that we're going to explore today. Thank you for joining me, friends, for our story and our activity. Miss Jen posted a video of a rooster story today, so you can check that out. And we have our circle time video. I hope that you get to do all the animal activities on the choice boards, and I hope you have a lot of fun with those. Miss Megan is going to post more stories about animals this week, and I will see you tomorrow for our live Zoom. All right, bye, llama friends.